Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report. It always feels like the Wumpus watching me, cause we're using Discord for recording. And I'm joined today not only by the Wumpus, who's dressed as a witch for Halloween, but my host companion is Sejohn Sarowick. Oh my God, Sejohn, how you doing?
Yeah, the Wumpus has been here since day one. This is really messing with my head. This new lore that we've just unlocked, that we've just realized has been going on. This B plot that I just have not been paying any attention to.
It's more like a Z plot, if we're being completely honest. It's just, we're recording, it's the Sunday before Halloween 2024. It's also Sejohn's first full day as a 37-year-old. Welcome to the club, buddy. It's been 37 in a row. Oh,
now I am a man, Devon. Now I am a man.
But in addition to all of that, we use Discord to record the show. They're not a sponsor. We're not partners with them or anything like that. Just giving you some inside baseball. And I turned on the computer today, and I have a huge notification from Discord being like, Halloween haunts your Discord. Beware, your notification sounds have a chilling twist. Head to your settings if you dare to switch back. And this is weird because Sejohn had mentioned the last time we recorded, I think it was just a regular episode, right? It was a week ago, that my ringtone was different. But the ringing was not because of the Halloween, right? We also got that 1 in 1,000 special ring that sometimes happens a week before they went on Halloween.
Discord has a whole bunch of weird Easter eggs, basically, right? And we got one. We stumbled on one.
Yeah, so it's just all sorts of, usually we don't really think of Discord as more than the servers that we are using to hear each other's beautiful voices and then record them for you, the listener. But Discord made itself like a very special guest star on this week's episode of the Say Report. So congratulations, Discord. Welcome to the call. Welcome to the club.
Yeah, well, it is the time of the season for spooky, weird shit, Dev. I think that's fair. I think Discord just wants to be in on that, right?
Yeah.
There's all sorts of spooky, weird shit we're up to this week.
So I just Googled the special ringtone. You have a 0.1% chance of getting that special ringtone.
Oh, so, we're Discord special boys.
We're Discord special boys. I mean, this was last week, but it still counts. We're always going to be this special boys. We're the 0.1%. But it is a spooky week. I've done some spooky things. I purchased something that scared the, if you'll pardon my blasphemy, but Jesus out of Sejohn right before we started recording.
Yeah, legitimately going to have to figure out ways to not have this image in my brain for the rest of the day.
Well,
I'm gonna need to go do some brain bleach after this.
So I guess let's start there so that we can begin the cleansing process for you. What I sent to Sejohn, and I'll have shared a picture in the supplemental materials of our Discord, of the Say Report Discord, so you can also have the nightmare fuel at the ready. How familiar are you with Ben Cooper? Is, I guess, where this conversation has to start.
Yeah, we're going to need to start from zero, because I think I have an inclination of where we're going with this, but I think that for my own sake and for the sake of the audience, let's play completely dumb here.
All right, so from the Wikipedia on Ben Cooper Incorporated was a privately held American corporation founded in 1937, which primarily manufactured Halloween costumes from the late 1930s to the late 1980s. That is just like it establishes something. Ben Cooper, founded by Ben Cooper Sr. in 1937 and then defunct in 1992. What Ben Cooper did. Now, you have an idea in your mind. I want to take every Say Report listener and Sejohn on a visual journey through the imagination fields of your mind. Think of the cheapest store-bought, specifically store-bought, Halloween costume you have ever interacted with. Now, What that costume probably was a plastic mask and a plastic smock that you wore. And whatever you're dressing up as, let's say you're going to be, I don't know, Superman. It's a face that kind of looks like Superman's face with the little curly Q and everything. And then that smock, instead of being the Superman S, which would then make it a costume of Superman, that smock has a photo of Superman. So it's not so much that you're dressing up as Superman for Halloween. You're kind of dressing up as Superman if you were Hannibal Lecter and his biggest fan. You have stolen the face of the man you idolize, and we all know you idolize him because you're wearing swag that tells the world, hey, I'm a fan. On the Wikipedia, and I definitely recommend you visit the Wikipedia, a 1977 Ben Cooper costume of C-3PO is there. It has to be the one that's featured on this because it is, without a doubt, the most costume of the Ben Cooper costumes that ever existed. Like, this one actually makes you look like C-3PO, as opposed to, say, I have a skull mask on and a skeleton on my chest for some reason.
And for some reason it says, I hate Mondays. I don't know why. It just...
Yeah, right. When Garfield was big, every shirt at the bottom just said, I hate Mondays, regardless of what you're dressing up as. So... NECA, which I want to say on the thing what NECA stands for.
Well, wait, the costume thing, right?
Yeah.
If you don't know what exactly we're talking about, because that's not the cheap costumes nowadays have a whole different ring to them. I mean, we've gotten to the era of just the T-shirt costume just being king in that regard, right? This year, I think the big thing is going to be like onesies, which I seem to bubble up every couple of years as like the costume of choice. What these ones are though. Are the things that end up inspiring stuff like Michael Myers, right? Like where like he's just got the cheap rubber mask on, but like there is like a Texas Chainsaw-esque nature to like the ways in which you're just putting on this like fake rubber face, and like Devon said, like the cheapest material for a smock, like nowadays it would be like polyester, like that shit that like you wear once and like it falls apart if you put it in the washing machine, so you might as well just throw it out. Yeah, like that kind of shit. But yes, so now NECA has come into the story, as they often do.
The National Entertainment Collectibles Association, yearly reminder of what NECA stands for, they received the license to make Ben Cooper action figures. And what it is, this is a gold mine, right? This is nostalgia. And at the end of the day, toy sales now are all about nostalgia. And they exist. Let me go get to the next page. This is number 11 of the set, but I think there's something like 27 that have been revealed so far. What I sent to Sejohn and what you can see in the Discord is a young man dressed up as a xenomorph. So he has on a plastic mask that looks nothing like a xenomorph. I just have to be completely honest with you. Like,
I gotta say, like, I don't know if they were looking at this when they made Prometheus and thought, let's go in that direction, or if there was just somebody there that had some real good future vision. Because if you told me that was something between, like, in the alien lore, I 100% would believe. But pure xenomorph, no, not a fucking chance.
Yeah, like, it has to be flat by the nature of it being, like, a plastic mask. And then on the shirt, there is a xenomorph, and it kind of is reminiscent of Big Mac from the first Alien movie, but also it kind of looks like it's a xenomorph in a Halloween costume as a skeleton.
It is a pure justification for the shitty mask. It is trying to gaslight anyone who looks at them and goes, that kind of looks like an alien, but I don't quite remember what aliens look like. And then you look down at the t-shirt and go, oh, right, that's what the aliens look like. This is actually a pretty good mask. But that's not true at all.
No, it is not. So this is the third wave that I did it. And the first couple of waves, it was like basic, like Halloween stuff. Like there was a devil, there's a witch, there's a skeleton, vampire, things like that. Their third wave is all licensed costumes. And at New York Comic Con, they revealed the fourth wave, which legitimately has like a Superman and a Wonder Woman and more licensed comic book style Halloween costumes.
That makes sense. Building up to some of the more famous, more nostalgic ones.
And ones that, NECA has the license to. Let's add on to that. Because right now they have the Beetlejuice license. They just put up a $180 Dante's Inferno room, the strip club from the first movie, That like
Yeah.
the bureaucrat, like I put that in there for Beetlejuice so we could have some time away from him. Sorry. They have the Beetlejuice one, and in the third wave, it is the Xenomorph that we're already talking about, a Gizmo, a Gremlin, specifically Stripe from Gremlins '84.
A horny Gizmo, I would say. A thirsty Gizmo.
Yeah, that Gizmo wants to get it. And then the last one is
Now, to be fair, that Gizmo, it looks like what he's asking is, "Hey, are you DTF?" Like he's not throwing himself at you, but he's saying, "I'm open to it. Are you?"
Yeah. Just, we have to be done before midnight because I can't get excited or aroused after midnight. Complete the joke. It was good. Or an animated Beetlejuice specifically from the animated series because we don't want kids trick-or-treating as, you know, a pedophile. Which, like, is that realization that you have when you grow up that, like, a 1,000-year-old demon wanted to wed Lydia Dietz, who is, I think, like, barely 16 in the first movie.
Yes.
Memories
yes.
of
I mean,
Beetlejuice.
we're gonna. Yes. There's. Yes. All right. So this answers some questions for me because part of what was really throwing me was why were these the four, right? Knowing that these are a later wave, knowing that it's because of licensing stuff that they own, that all answers a lot of questions for me as to why the fuck this is what they chose to go with. Because like, first of all, like Gizmo and the Gremlin, like next to each other is great, but then to put animated cartoon Beetlejuice on one side and Xenomorph something like some evolution of Xenomorph on the other, I was like, what is the through line? What am I supposed to understand about what these costumes were? But licensing really answers that, huh?
Yeah, because they have the licenses to both, like NECA for a long time was the only place to get any sort of alien collectible stuff. And they've had the Gremlin stuff, right? Like, from the beginning of this podcast, I have the electric Gremlin from Gremlins 2 in the studio, and it's a NECA release that I got from Toys R Us for $1 because it's not a very good figure. It's like a 2D figure, and that is all I'm going to say. I cannot use any other descriptors on how this figure actually functions or exists in our world. But I am not one of these people. There are people who are going out collecting these Ben Cooper stuff. A lot of them are using them with their Ninja Turtle figures, specifically from the movies, to represent the disenfranchised youth that becomes Shredder's child army in the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film. Like,
Nice.
you know, regular menthol and all those stupid things. Go play. So that's one of the reasons. And I'm like, I'm going to get one. And it will be one that, like, I have to find it in a store. I cannot, like, order it online. And it will just be whatever I find. Now, what I found was a Gizmo, a Stripe, and 2 Xenomorphs. And of those, if you look at all of them, we'll put up a photo of all of them as well. The Xenomorph is the one that interests me the most. Just because, like, it seems to capture my memories about what a Ben Cooper Halloween costume was in the best possible way. It looks like a knockoff, but Ben Cooper, like, also famously was getting the licenses to be the one-stop shop for
somebody
these
had
style.
to, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody had to put the cheap shit out there for people. The other thing that these really capture, and part of this might be the doll part of this, but there's also this this thing about nostalgic costumes that I'm sure I'm not the only one that shares this because it comes up all the time in media, where like you look at a photo of costumes from even like 30 years ago or like older, like even maybe nowadays 20 years ago, but like there's just like a weird creepy factor to like kind of the acceptance of this like weird ugliness of costumes. Think about like every time they show a photo of like a group of kids in costumes from like the 1950s and everybody like freaks out at like how weirdly off they all look, right? Or we look at like old like costumes from like the early 1900s from like circuses and shit, and it like really creeps us out. Original Mickey Mouse mascots, right? Like that level of like weird like disconnect, and they are capturing that so insanely well in these toys, and I can't figure out if it's just because they're just toys and they're not anything under there, or like if these masks really looked like this back then. But there is a level of that creepiness with these that is really getting to me.
Yeah, it's also the thought that, like, I don't doubt for a second that this, like, an alien style costume existed, and like kids should not be dressing up as alien. It's not an appropriate costume. I don't know. So I'm happy I have one. And I opened it up this morning. I got to say, I'm very impressed. And these are like printing money right now for NECA because the base body is the same. They can print it in any different color plastic. Like, the thing I really like about the Xenomorph character is that it's an African-American child, too. Because all the other ones seem to be, like white kids. So I like that, like, there's some variety in what you can get as who's dressed up in these things. And there are male and female ones. But the difference, because they're young children, is just the head sculpt. The boys have, like, just hair, and the girls have pigtails. So, like, this is a really cheap thing for them to shit out. Shit out is the wrong thing, but, like, to produce. They can produce a bunch of these. The price is right. Like, NECA is known for the $35 action figure. So the fact that these are only $20, like, if you're a NECA collector, like, you can get your fix for cheaper. If you're not a NECA collector, they can bring you in with a cheaper first product. It's gross all over. I just need to say that. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. And I had to, like, jump in and give it a try. I'm happy I did. I'm not going to be collecting all the other ones that are out there. Having this one and there's that weird justification of, well, it's like a Halloween decoration and, like, it'll come out at Halloween. And I cannot find it right now, but if you want to go looking on the internet for something to terrify you, Google Ben Koopa NECA figure without mask. That is, like, legitimately terrifying because the head sculpt front themselves is just the hyper-realistic eyes of the kid, but then just a huge gaping hole like Birdetta from Super Mario where the mask piece slots in. So it's not like they're not interchangeable or anything like that. It is meant like this kid will always be wearing this mask. Do not take off the mask or you will just, kind of terrify yourself with the eldritch anime horror.
You'll stare into the abyss and the abyss will stare back.
Yes, and then it will whisper, trick or treat. But yeah, so I'm glad that I experimented. I'm glad I could start with you in this, like, episode that is, I mean, this is releasing the week of Halloween, freaking 2024. Oh God, it looks like there's one of the House of a Thousand Corpses guy. Oh my goodness.
Captain Spaulding?
Yeah, Captain Spaulding. The Series 4 is Krampus, Nosferatu, the Thanksgiving guy. I know it's John something. I haven't seen the new one. Captain Sparling. And then Sam
wait a minute,
Trick or Treat.
So Sam, Captain Spaulding, and the John Proctor mask.
John Proctor mask, yeah, that's what it is, yeah.
From Thanksgiving, like, those are new though.
Those wouldn't. But they also...
Yeah, those wouldn't have been ones that would have existed, right? Because this company closed in the 90s.
In the 92. So, I mean, the other thing is that they're kind of creating new representations of them with the licenses that they own. Because they have a Nosferatu figure out there. They've done House of a Thousand Corpses figures. Their Thanksgiving and Krampus stuff is supposed to come out for this holiday season. And I know that they've done Sam from Trick or Treat like once or twice as a figure. The Sam one looks kind of the coolest because the regular head is just the Sam head, and then it has a mask that you can put on or take off.
Nice.
Like, it's interesting. But yeah, like, this has become a huge thing for NECA. And I don't know if it's just going to be like a this year thing or if they're going to keep it going until it grows stale. But yeah, there's been at least 4 exclusives that have released. It's just been this crazy thing. And I knew that it was this huge thing. And I'm like, I kind of want to jump in, but I just want to get one. I just want to get one single figure. And my little Xenomorph boy is probably going to be it. And it's crazy.
My little Xenomorph. Yeah. Fantastic. Wow, man, wild. Like, these things are going to haunt my dreams.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry about that. Sorry for any dreams that are haunted by them. But they just want some candy, then they'll go away.
Oh, shit, man. So what else have you been up to this week?
Well, I saw Venom: The Last Dance, a film that in its opening day made $1 million less than Smile 2 did in its whole opening weekend. So I'm hoping that Venom The Last Dance actually succeeds. My favorite part about Venom The Last Dance, aside from the fact that they went out, saw the shows that people were streaming and got actors from those shows, namely Ted Lasso and Letterkenny. A lot of representation here. I also really like that we all lost our collective minds when it's what's his name? Robert Downey Jr. is going to be playing a villain in the Marvel movies. He's going to be Doctor Doom. How? He was Iron Man. And this film not only has Baron Mordo himself, Chiwetel Ejiofor, playing a secondary role, but, semi-spoilers, Rhys Ifans, the Lizard from Sony's Amazing Spider-Man, also plays a second role in a Sony Spider-Man Universe film. So, they were ready for this, because this movie was done a year ago. It was ready to go in 2023. But it kept getting pushed around because of, the everything that was going on. So, they were ready to release this prior to Comic-Con, and then when they heard Deadpool Wolverines, they're like, well, we're going to push it back to October like it was before. So they had already kind of bridged that gap. And it's not there have been side characters in the MCU who have been played by there are people Peter's mom showed up in the Captain America movie, right? Peter Quill's mom, specifically, not Peter Parker's mom. But there have already been double castings of the same actors in MCU projects. So the Robert Downey Jr. of it all should not have blown our minds. But then it's really happy to see people who played really prominent roles get cast in other roles. And granted, the Sony Spider-Man Universe is not the same as the MCU, but it does really, it feels good. The
Robert Downey Jr. stuff is over and done with me when all of this shit complaining about him playing a second character in the MCU was going to fuck everybody's minds up. The same moment he was up for an Emmy for playing 8 roles, I think, in a singular show.
Yeah.
And that was the whole reason he was doing that show and we were about to praise him with an award. We were also then being but you can't do that in our Marvel movies. That would really fuck us up.
Also, I think whoever played Cersei in the Eternals, I know the Eternals exist, guys. I know a lot of people that do it. She was also the sniper Kree in Captain Marvel. So that's 2 pretty semi-prominent roles by the same actor. So I don't know. It's just an interesting thing.
Talk to me about Venom. Talk to me, about Last Dance. Right, how are we feeling about the end of an era? How
it's kind of a musical. So also all of the leveraging and everybody pissed off about Joker being a musical. Here comes Venom The Last Dance. And there's not moments where no, there's a sing-along. There are 2 sing-along moments in the movie. There's a lavish dance number. It's a musical more how the Blues Brothers is a musical. Where yes, the Blues Brothers undeniably a musical, but a lot of the times music is just happening around them. And honestly, when the Blues Brothers are performing, it is not some sort of hyper fantasy realism that's going on.
No, usually they're on stage playing music to a crowd at a concert. Yeah.
It's not when Cab Calloway does Minnie the Moocher.
Was it diegetic or something like that? Right?
It's all diegetic for them. And I mean, I would say Shake a Tail Feather's probably non-diegetic. Think
In Respect
is insane.
Is not.
Yeah. Was that?
What's the one Aretha Franklin sings in
the first one? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that one is in, but then Respect is in the second movie when they go to the sex phone line. Blues Brothers 2000. It's a shame that the Say reporters have weirder, fonder memories of you than the better movie. We've seen both though. We will go on that. So Venom The Last Dance, my 2-word review was surprisingly excellent. I like the Venom movies. I'm not going to deny that. The first Venom movie really excited me in a lot of ways. And Let There Be Carnage, not the best. I still think the original Venom is good, but Woody Harrelson as Cletus Cassidy is genius casting. He played that role magnificently. It's just a shame that they tried to shove in every Carnage story that ever existed into a singular movie because it's
Right.
still Sony. So like, well, we have to kill the enemy by the end of the movie. We can't just let the enemy live, right? The Sony superhero problem is we need to kill the enemy by the end of the movie.
They've got a few others, but that is definitely one of them. I will give you that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think I would probably put that on the top of the list of my complaints, right? Dr. Octopus does not become an interesting character in the comics until he's existed for like 20 years. Like, I don't mean to be rude, but it's true. Like, he's just like this like schlubby little scientist who couldn't get funding, so he experimented in like a back basement, and then there was an accident that fused his tentacles to him.
Well,
Like-
remember, they tried to go the other way for a little bit in doing the Sinister Six, so that's why we get Michael Keaton as the Vulture not dying at the end of Homecoming, right? Obviously, clearly, once Disney gets involved, right?
Yeah.
So, like, that's where you start to kind of question, like, would Sony have killed him if they could have? Probably. So they do try that for a little bit, and that ended up not really working for him either, so I don't really know.
Yeah, I mean, like, Rhys Ifans the Lizard, he survives. He lives. The Sandman lives. There are a couple who do get to live, which made it weird when they showed up in No Way Home. Spoilers for the final Disney-Sony collaboration Spider-Man movie that currently exists. Because, like, the idea of Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus and Electro showing up, all of them die in the end of their movies. So
Chris Evans doesn't die? I thought he fell off of a building or something.
But he winds up in a... I'm pretty sure he doesn't die at the end of that movie. He falls off a building as a lizard.
Do we get like a Sinister Six, like...
Yeah, because he was going to be one of the central members of the Sinister Six. It's why his lizard was more intelligent. That was their whole explanation of that movie, is we made the lizard more intelligent so that he was going to fulfill probably the Dr. Octopus role, right? Because I don't think they could have Dr. Octopus because of weird rights, or I don't know. But yeah, he was very much going to be, and he's alive in a cell later on in the movie. That's where
that's what I was saying, is like, do we get that scene of like the recruitment scene? So if we do, then yeah, he must have survived. I just kind of blinked out that he that anything about what those movies were trying to do, to be honest. Like the Amazing Spider-Man movies, the any of the Sonyverse stuff, there's just a lot of that I've just kind of lost track of.
Yeah. So yeah, at the end of it, an incarcerated Connor speaks to the man in the shadows who asks if Peter knows the truth about his father. Connor tells him Peter does not know and demands that Peter be left alone before the man disappears. And that man, more than likely, Norman Osborn. So
right.
That was the whole thing there. So he definitely does survive. So they had done some survival, but that's because they were gearing up for a Sinister Six. So like, well, we need to have 6 enemies who are alive at the end, which is why Amazing Spider-Man 2 has not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 like superpowered villains in it at one point.
Yeah, right? I believe
it's a mess is what it is. Love the movie for what it did, like, overall. But yeah, there's a reason nobody really talks about the amazing Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies. But Venom, like, they're just fun and they're crazy, and the storyline was good and it was heartfelt, and they did a lot of beautiful, like, save the cat stuff by introducing this just like human family. Because the central conceit, brief spoilers for Venom: The Last Dance, like, the whole thing is that they're decommissioning Area 51. That's like part of the start of the story, is this decommissioning of Area 51, because they've already set up Area 55. That's 4 areas higher, guys. Like 30 yards from where Area 51 is, behind a sand waterfall that you drive through to get on an elevator that drops you down. I think they said like we're 1,000 feet below the Earth's surface at some point. Like,
okay.
Think that. But so the decommissioning of Area 51 means that, like, people want to go see it before it's completely destroyed. So we meet this family. It's Rhys Ifans, Martin, his wife, played by Alana Ubach, who I'm so happy that she's had such an amazing 2024. Like, in addition to being Johnny and Ted's mother in the Ted Limited series back in January, she was Bishop in the Tales of the TMNT first arc. And oh my God, she played that role incredibly. She showed up in the Family Guy Halloween special, and now she's showing up again in Venom: The Last Dance. Like, she's always worked since her time in Beekman's World, but it's nice to see her more prominently. Like, to be reminded of just how great an actor she is. And then their two kids. One of them is played by the youngest daughter from Man with a Plan, the weird Matt LeBlanc show with Kevin Nealon, and God, I love that show. Hala Finley, she plays Echo in the movie because they're like real big hippies too. It's Martin, and Moonshine is his wife, played by Alana Ubek, and then our children Echo and Leaf. Oh, they just had fun. They just had fun with this movie, and that's it.
So what like what's so they're decommissioning Area 51. There's a hippie family. What is the connective tissue here?
So the connective tissue is that when a symbiote host dies, if the symbiote is still attached to them, they can resurrect the body, but that will create a codex. Because, yeah, sure, of course. And Eddie does die in Let There Be Carnage. He is stabbed through the heart. Venom brought him back to life. So they now are in possession of the codex, which is the key that will free Null from his prison. Null, of course, being the King in Black, the originator of the symbiotes, and all of that.
So they did go full Null with this story?
They didn't go full Null. They kind of gave us the half Null. The half Nullson, if you will. Because Null never escapes from his prison.
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
If anything, they're able to lock him in a deeper level of the prison. I would have freaked out if Null actually showed up, like, on Earth, freed. And it does not happen. But, like, he is sending his little symbiote hunters through Doctor Strange-style gates to Earth. And the only way that they can track the codex is if they fully transform. So you get a lot more of Tom Hardy talking to, like, the Venom head, because if the symbiote and him fully merge to create Venom as we know him, then immediately the symbiote hunters can track them down. And, like, they play that really cool, too. Like, there's one time where they do that to call them, and then they untransform, so that they can, like, get more information about the monster. Like, it's really cool how they do it. And those things are terrifying. Venom: The Last Dance is rated PG-13. I need to see what the other Venom movies were rated. I cannot imagine that Let There Be Carnage was rated PG-13 at all. If you're gonna have
it hadn't already cut at one point, but I don't remember if they cut it down.
They're all PG-13. This was the most visceral PG-13 film I've seen in a long time. Those enemies, when they eat you, because they'll defend themselves. So, like, one of them shows up at the Area 55 because it can smell the other symbiotes. And even though it can't detect the codex there, it's like, this is a logical place for us to go. And so soldiers start attacking them, and they eat them. And rather than swallow the bodies, they're like paper shredders or wood chippers. So, like, they'll eat something and then they'll just get shot out the back of their head in, like, blood and viscera. And it is awesome. Like,
I mean, it sounds great. And also just,
Oh, yeah, no, I get it. I understand totally if you vomited in your chair listening to that. Yeah, they just built this beautiful world and great new characters. And, like, my only complaints is that, like, some of the people from the first movies didn't show up, but they show up in the credits. So I imagine they had scenes that were cut. But, like, it is a tight, like, 100-minute movie. It doesn't feel like anything extraneous. They left it open for a sequel, even though it is, spoilers, The Last Dance for Venom or Eddie Brock. That part I won't ruin for you. But, like, think about it. The movie's called The Last Dance. Somebody is dying in a movie called The Last Dance. But it was really good. It really, nice capper to the trilogy. Loved my time with it. And I've been seeing it described, the Venom movies, as superhero movies in the vein of Fast and the Furious. And I agree with that. Like, it's just about having fun. It doesn't matter the logic or the sensibility. Like, we're here to have fun with Venom and Tom Hardy as Venom. It was an absolute blast. I really enjoyed my time with it.
Yeah, and I wish that the Sony ones had really kind of leaned into that idea, because like I feel like one of the big things with Morbius that really got me in the few moments I tried to watch it, and I've heard from other people, is that like it takes itself too seriously, and specifically Leto takes himself too seriously, like for what's going on in the rest of the movie. The other side of that coin that people then point to is Matt Smith, who seemed to know exactly what he was doing in that movie, right? And we get like the memeified like dancing scenes and shit like that really point to like he knew exactly what that movie was supposed to be, and if it had been more of that it would have been a much more enjoyable experience. And I feel like this has just been the case all along. Tom Hardy has known since day one what this series was, and it's what really made the Venom take off. Because as much as I am not as into these movies as you are, I can't deny that like I can tell that like the Venom movies are the successful ones, and everybody else is just trying to really kind of reach out and get to a piece of that pie and figure out what it is that Venom got that the rest of them didn't. And I think a big part of that secret sauce is Tom Hardy and the fact that he clicks incredibly well with the character and with the content of those films.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. When the story is by the writer, Kelly Marcel, who this was also her directorial debut, and for like a first-time director, the movie was great. Like she knew what she was doing from having written all of the Venom films up to this point. Andy Serkis was going to direct this one, but because of Animal Farm, which almost took him off of Let There Be Carnage, like it's a bunch of talented people left to their own devices. What we should look at the Venom trilogy as is a bunch of people who fucking know what they're doing when it comes to making a movie, and really not having any of the oversight from the studios that like ends up meddling these films to death.
We got to close. Like, I think one of the big problems that people really had with some of the stuff after Let There Be Carnage is not necessarily the movie itself, but there's some of the bits and ways in which they were starting to try and tie it into the MCU, right? There was that moment where we thought we were actually going to get a crossover and all of that. And that is one of the few places where I feel like you can see some studio meddling, and one of the few places where I think you would see people point like specifically to the shit that they just don't like. Is like when we get to those weird moments, like Morbius specifically is the one that has like the after credit scene with the vulture in it, right? And things like that.
Which doesn't make any sense, but you know what you got to do.
yeah, but that's what I mean. Is like you do get some of that meddling in with Carnage with Venom, because we do get that like weird scene, right? Which is done wonderfully. I mean, it starts with that. It doesn't start there, but it picks up from that scene, and they just have a blast with it. And even then, like it was No Way Home that does have the after credit scene of them like we're in this universe and we're stuck here and what are we gonna do? Like, but they didn't do anything with it. Like, it's like, we left you guys this opportunity if you want to include Venom, and they're like, yeah, that's nice. Go fuck yourself. And thank God they said go fuck yourself, because like the films get to exist in kind of this like space all their own. The only thing I think that where they made a problem was they wanted to have J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson in the first Venom movie, and they're like, no, we that'd be weird, whatever this, and da-da-da. But like now, in the greater of like how the multiverse functions, and the fact that like J. Jonah Jameson is just J.K. Simmons in every universe, like that would have worked. And they have a couple of nice nods to that in tying up some of those loose ends from Eddie traveling to the MCU. They do some really nice stuff with the fact that like in other universes, people are the same person, right? Which by the nature of the multiverse is how it would more than likely work, right? Oh
right?
Man,
like,
that's the thing. We can't get into those kinds of conversations. We'll be here for 4 hours.
Yeah, exactly. But it all worked out really, and you're right. Like those are the issues, and I think Morbius, Jared Leto took it to the Jared Leto level, while Matt Smith is having a blast, and that's one of the reasons that Morbius really sings for me. I think that Dakota Johnson in Madam Web, Like, she didn't understand it. Like, all of them thought that it was going to be like a full-on superhero movie, and it's just like, no, we're kind of subverting the fact that we can't use Spider-Man with all this stuff. But,
Yeah, I mean, I think the bigger problem there is infamously is that we know that there was just some decisions made by certain people at the higher level without conveying them
yeah.
to anybody else. This is just like really weird.
Right. So, I mean, Venom: The Last Dance, definitely better than Madam Web. And I liked Madam Web. I had fun with Madam Web. Dale, I'm going to throw her opinion out there so that everybody can hear it. She thought it was better than Deadpool Wolverine in terms of, like, the fun level and the, like, story kind of making sense and having stakes level of it all. Not that she didn't enjoy Deadpool Wolverine, but, like, this felt like a third movie that acknowledged the earlier two films existed better than Deadpool Wolverine. Like, judging it as a trilogy of films. And I thought that was interesting.
I think that's totally fair. I think that I would say part of Deadpool Wolverine, they aren't even trying that.
Oh, of course. Yeah, no, 1,000%, like it is. But I was surprised when that was her read on it. It was like, I had more fun with that movie than I did with Deadpool Wolverine. And I'm like, that's an interesting topic. But then also, I get it. I get where you're coming from with that as your read on the film. Because, like, this felt like those other two movies happened, and here's acknowledgments to those. And I'm glad that I would have loved it, but I know that it would have confused people. Had Rhys Ifans been playing somebody named Kurt instead of somebody named Martin, and in this universe, he never became the Lizard, he never went to war and lost his arm, like, that would have been an interesting take on how the multiverse is different all around. But the acknowledgement of the multiverse and the way that they acknowledge it, like, I'm glad we're done with all that stupid multiverse bullshit, is an exact line that Venom speaks in this movie. Like, it felt good, right? Like, that I hadn't considered until Dale brought up Deadpool Wolverine, how weirdly similar these two films that existed outside of the MCU, but then are pulled into the MCU because of the nature of them trying to, like, hunt down this multiverse where we can pull from any Marvel thing that has ever happened. Like, they were in such similar spots. But the best part about Venom: The Last Dance is not related to the movie. It is the fact that before the movie, they showed a new trailer for Kraven the Hunter with its release date of December 13th, 2024. Kraven is still happening, Sejohn, and I'm so happy about it.
Well, I don't know what this movie is going to possibly do for anyone, but let's do this thing.
I know. I'm going to go see it. I know that fact. I mean, the trailer looked awesome. It is rated R, so it is going to be gruesome. It kind of looks like, what if John Wick were Kraven the Hunter?
Yeah, it felt like it was very much like Beekeeper, John Wick level, like we're going for just that over-the-top visceral action, but we're also going to be kind of comic booky with some of the lore. So I am excited about it, like conceptually. I just don't know what they hope. I don't know what Sony is expecting from this release. Are they just getting it out there just to be done with it and walking away, and then are they going to be washing their hands? Are they hoping Kraven's going to somehow reignite something? Like, I'm not quite sure. With The Last Dance coming out, it almost felt like a acceptance by Sony that this plan has not worked, and we are going to figure out what the next step is. This is the end. We're closing the book. Let's do this. So the decision to actually release Kraven, a film that should have been out already, twice over, right? Wasn't it supposed to be 2 movies ago?
Yeah, it was supposed to come out. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, like, the idea that, like, it feels like it's just them just being like, well, we got it, it's done, we might as well get something off of it, and, like, they're putting it out. And that isn't really, like, an exciting way for me to go into a movie. But if Sony is, like, weirdly expecting something from Kraven to be, like, maybe the thing that helps spark some, wheels for the next move or whatever, like, I don't, like, that would be kind of wild. So, like, I would love to hear from somebody in Sony explain exactly what they think of Kraven the Hunter now.
Well, the weird thing is that I would have expected Kraven to come before Venom: The Last Dance.
Yeah.
So the fact that it is coming after that film really just like I have no idea anymore. I cheered in the theater at the Craven trailer. And I'm like, this has to mean that it's coming, right? And then at the end, like December 13th, I'm like, yeah! And Dale's like, they already said December. I'm like, yeah, but like, we have a date now. I mean, I have a date to look forward to. Like,
you weren't literally mid trailer going like, does this mean the movie's coming out? Because what the fuck would it be? An announcement will never be released. We just wanted to let you know. Sorry guys, before we get into the good stuff, we just wanted to break your heart.
It was that thing where I'm like, I thought this movie was stopped. I thought that they were delaying this movie, but like, did they already like ship it and then like it was too late to pull it out and they're like, it's coming eventually for it to acknowledge that it's coming out in 2 months. Like, I didn't think we were going to get the 3 Sony Spider-Man Universe films that they had promised for 2024. I mean, like, I was surprised when Venom: The Last Dance got a release date. When I saw a trailer for the new Venom movie before Deadpool and Wolverine, I was legitimately like, oh, I thought this was all done. I thought that after Madam Web, they're like, we're done with all of this. We're going to take the Zaslav special, please, and just do the tax write-off. So, like, these...
Well, like, there's something to be said about the marketing, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that you can point to with Batgirl, the moment when that movie was decided it's dead in the water, even though it's almost complete, we had seen no marketing by that point.
Right.
Like, I had not even seen a poster, but there definitely was. It's not like we have like a trailer where we're like, oh man, like there was no money spent on marketing. And I think that was very strategic in when they decided to pull the plug on that, right? Versus by the time we get to the point where they suddenly start dicking around with the Kraven the Hunter release date, they had already had a trailer out. Like, there was already posters. There had been like presentations at Comic-Con of like, hey, here's like an actor that's going to be in it, and then they don't let them talk to anybody and shuffle them away. Like, they had gone into like advertisement mode on that. So I think it put them in a weird spot because, like, I don't know with all of the tag stuff and the financial stuff and all of that, but we do know that a lot of the magic marketing or a lot of the magic budgeting that goes on with Hollywood, a large part of the whole problem with all of that is the way that marketing is actually considered in the budget and or not, right? And the financing behind what the marketing is and how that marketing works completely changes the math in a way that completely fucks what people understand a successful or not successful movie actually looks like, right? And purposely so. Like, all of this is done so that people like me and you, Devon, like out there can only guess at what the fuck is going on. But I do say I do see a difference from the outside. With the Zabzov special, everything we've ever seen that's really gotten the kick on that is it's either already been out for a while and they can say at this point, okay, now it's dead, let's kill it, let's not put close enough out there anymore, right? Or we didn't even get to a point where we were producing marketing for this, let's cut it off, right? I don't know if there's something I can think of that was in that space where we like had a commercial, we had a date, we knew when it was coming along, we knew when it was going to be, and then suddenly they were like, never mind, we're not doing it. Like, I don't think that has ever happened yet, right?
I think the closest thing to it is Coyote versus Acme might have had something there.
I had not heard of that movie until they had pulled. Like, I had heard in the background that they were making a new Looney Tunes movie, right, but I had not gotten any of the specifics until we heard about it no longer coming out.
Yeah, I think, like, again, I think it might have been like smaller level stuff, but that seems like the only one that I would point at where like there was enough interest in it that it feels like something had happened. And again,
I guess it had gotten screenings, like, right? Yeah. I guess that makes sense. Yeah, it had gotten some actual legitimate screenings by like industry people that were like talking about it and excited about it. And then when it got pulled, they were like the loudest champions of like, no, this movie should come out. Were people that had actually gotten the chance to actually sit and view it.
And that's why there was like that time where we thought it was going to be saved, because some of those people championing the movie had the ability to be like, we will offer you this much money to purchase it and put it on Netflix, to purchase it and put it on Hulu. Like that stuff happened. And that stuff didn't happen with Batgirl because nobody had seen Batgirl. Like that. Like, so there is like where I think that distinction exists. And again, I don't know what's going to happen with Kraven, but I do know that worldwide, Venom: The Last Dance as of the current like estimations and everything. We're not going to know what its full weekend take was until after we've recorded this episode. But it's already made $100 million worldwide. So it's only 20 off from its like estimated budget of $120 million. So I do hope that with its opening weekend, it turns, even if it's just like $1 million in profit, I will be happy for this film. I know that like industry people, that won't be enough for them, but it will mean something to me personally as someone like, I mean, people.
I think it'll get there. There is no indication that this movie is going to do poorly. People out there really like the Venom movies, despite everything else going on with Sony. It is always the way that I've heard those movies talked about. Is like, yeah, man, Sony doesn't know what the hell they're doing. Venom's great, but what the fuck are they doing with anything else? It's like always the conversation, right? Is like, so I don't doubt that this movie's going to do it okay for itself. I think you're right that I don't know if it's going to do well enough for industry people to say it did okay, but for what we understand, which we are now learning we really have to consider more often than not, for what we understand for what a movie like is succeeding and doing what it should be doing, like we, you know, I think it's going to meet those standards just fine.
Spinning off of that, I'm going to present two movies to you right now. I would like you, just as Sejohn, to tell me which one you think has a better chance of getting a sequel. Those two films are Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves and Transformers 1. Which one do you think has the better chance of getting a sequel?
Honor Among Thieves, because there's so many ways in which that sequel doesn't have to adhere to the first. Like, they can do a million different things to, I mean, cut corners, essentially, on what was a extremely successful movie. So, like, I don't see any reason not to. Whereas, like, Transformers 1, animation is already super expensive. Mm-hmm. Add to that there is a fan base there and an understanding there of specifics in the lore and in characters and stuff that you have to obey a lot of masters in making that one. So, like, more expensive to make, I bet, and also, like, angrier fan bases and like more likely to rub people the wrong way. Transformers 1 is a riskier movie to make a sequel to, whereas I feel like Dungeons and Dragons getting a sequel makes perfect sense, because again, there's so many things you could do. If you really wanted to cheap out, you could even just get a whole new cast of characters and just call it a spiritual successor.
Right. So, first of all, listeners of the Say Report, this is what Sejohn and I bring to the table. These are the moments where we differ. Because earlier this week, I did make good on that promise. I showed up on Zach's This Toy Makes Me Happy to discuss Transformers 1 in honor of its digital release. If you haven't seen it, go out there. It is very affordable to rent almost everywhere, and it's a great film. And I vehemently put my backing behind Transformers 1 getting the sequel before Honor Among Thieves. Sejohn made so many good points, almost all of the same points that I made as to why Transformers 1 gets the sequel first. And for me, primarily, it's because Transformers 1 costs less to make than Honor Among Thieves. It has made the same amount of profit as Honor Among Thieves did, which is also kind of crazy when you look at it in that terms, that both of those films made about $50 million in profits, but Transformers 1 did it on a smaller budget and was called a flop every single day of the week, where like Honor Among Thieves, everybody was like, oh, that movie was surprisingly successful as we gave it a full run, right? But the last...
So where's Transformers 1 being made, where it's being made that cheap then?
I have no idea. Like, when I looked up the budget and saw that it was an $80 million movie, it kind of blew my mind. That I don't know how they got it, how they made it as cheap as they did, and it looks as good as it does, right?
Right. I mean, because that is one of the biggest things about this particular one that I think is being really celebrated.
Yeah.
Is that it actually is good looking.
Though rewatching it at home where I could pause, and this was pointed out by somebody else, and it just corroborated some of my feelings. The reuse of Transformers, like, and we're talking like E-tier Transformers. Specifically, Lancer is the one that corroborated my feelings about this. Dave Willis, he did the Short Packed webcomic. He's a big Transformers guy. I've known him since the first movie came out. We met at the Comic-Con in Rhode Island, where I opened Optimus Prime's door and almost got sent to jail. And it was an accident. And honestly, I pointed out that the door should have been locked. So it was one of those, you broke the law, but you saved the day, Devon Decker. Here's a commendation. Don't talk about this on a podcast 17 years from now, please. Oops. Anywho, known him a while, and he's like, Lancer, and I'm like, all right, good. So I knew Lancer was in this movie, and then he showed a screen capture of the film where Lancer is in the background 4 times. Lancer is a female bot. She has a gold and purple color scheme. Love her. She's one of my favorite lesser known Transformers, specifically female Transformers. So I was happy to see her in the background, but then it was funny when he freeze framed and circled all of the reuse in it. Reuse, I feel, is one of the ways that this movie was made as cheap as it was. So many bots that
definitely
are just
would add to it.
Recolorizations.
But
there's a Prowl that has a black helmet and a purple faceplate, that just shows up in the background multiple times, and it's that's a non-existent that Transformer does not exist, right? I didn't realize that Ironhide was Ironhide because he just looked like Red Prowl, and in so many ways, Prowl and Ironhide share mold pieces. The significant difference being that Ironhide has a mohawk, while Prowl is for lack of a better term, has a shaved helmet and then 2 little red horns on his forehead. So, but body-wise, they're very similar. And I didn't realize that Ironhide was Ironhide until the second time I watched the movie. And I'm like, oh, it's supposed to be Ironhide, you idiot. So they did a lot of... And that's by the nature of Transformers 1. If you're doing a sequel... you get to use all of the existing models that you have, right? Which is Optimus Prime, Megatron. They got Starscream, Soundwave. Those are all Bumblebee, people who exist in front of Bumblebee. Yeah, exactly. Elita 1. You have the core 4. They are fully this is a unique Transformer. So and those are going to be your stars of the next movie. It's going to be Optimus Prime and Bumblebee going up against Megatron, Starscream, Soundwave, and Shockwave. Right? Raise your hand if you got Wave as a last name here, right? Seems like a popular one. But yeah, so it's I feel they put a lot of that money into making sure the core cast was made, and then just a shit ton of reuse on any background bots. So they spent their money affordably. And then where I put I would put Transformers 1 is in the marketing and the merchandising that came with it. You could still get Honor Amongst Thieves figures at the bargain stores around you. I don't know, would it be Ross in your area? Do you have Ollie's? What
we don't we don't have Ollie's, so it'd probably be more like Ross in that vein. But the big thing with Dungeons and Dragons is, remember, that it's not just toys we're talking about.
No,
we're also talking about
there,
a long history's worth of book releases that people are suddenly now going to be interested in, other media projects, other movies, other TV shows, things like that people are suddenly going to be interested in. The entire podcast side of the industry that Wizards of the Coast has got their fingers in some of them, definitely not all of them, but there's definitely some out there that are at least supported in part by them so that they can be recognized, right? So there's a whole other part of the industry for Honor Among Thieves that I think is an important thing to consider. Is it's a little apples and oranges almost. Yes, I'm sure they put out toys to go with Honor Among Thieves, but
and they
that's
sold
not
very poorly.
the merchant.
Yeah. Right.
And that's not the merchandise for that series, as opposed to Transformers, the lifeblood of Transformers has been the toy side of the merchandise, right?
Right. Every Transformers thing you've ever seen is just a commercial for toys. That is not the case for Dungeons & Dragons, a property that existed for 10 years longer than Transformers. But if I'm somebody who's all right, we're Hasbro, and I know that they sold off E1 and all their production companies that they had, which seems like a short-sighted move. like now in 2024, hindsight being 2024. I'm such an asshole. I'm so sorry. That they got rid of the production company that was responsible for making Honor Amongst Thieves. I mean, that's another intangible, right? If they still owned that production company and like they could keep all the costs in-house, so thus all the profit stays in-house, I think that would be a different conversation as well. But
Yeah.
in terms of toys, which are a big thing of what Hasbro considers, right? I don't think Honor Amongst Thieves is like getting people out to buy stuff they wouldn't have bought before, the same way that like Transformers 1, you can't find that stuff on the shelves, where it was like the shelves were clogged with Dungeons and Dragons until the Hasbro buyback and then sell off to Ollie's, where like they're now clogging the shelves at Ollie's. It's not like once it was announced that like, oh, all these Marvel Legends are available at your bargain stores, check your Rosses, check your Ollie's, like people went out there and they sold. But you still see walls and walls of the Honors Among Thieves stuff. I just think that the brand itself is a little more tainted. And then also look at the distance between the last proper Dungeons and Dragons movie before Honor Amongst Thieves, and then it was last year that Rise of the Beast came out, before they're like, we want to kind of like jump into the Spider-Verse of it all and also have an animated Transformers movie coming out every so often, so that you're always thinking, oh, can I go get Transformer toys? But it was an interesting thing to look at, just in terms of what studios are thinking. Because I don't know what Sony is thinking with Kraven the Hunter. I am very disappointed that all week Hasbro was teasing, we're going to have toys this weekend. Get excited for toy releases this weekend. We're going to be showing off new stuff. And then I go see Venom, The Last Dance. And there's a lot of toyetic stuff in that, right? By the nature of it being a Fast and Furious style superhero movie, right? There are so many symbiotes on display, and new symbiotes that we have not seen in the film. Going on record, all of the reviews I've read are like, I don't understand this two-headed symbiote. What is it supposed to represent? It's hybrid. It is the hybrid symbiote when all of the Life Foundation symbiotes joined together and made a single symbiote. That's exactly what that figure represents in the movie. Like, I don't, like, crazy that you're like, oh, we had to go to Wikipedia to confirm that Agony was Agony and Lasher was Lasher, but, like, they didn't, like, check out Hybrid, who is a symbiote that is composed of both Lasher and freaking Agony. What are you talking about? I'm sorry. Because it happened on the screen. I'm like, they freaking represented Hybrid here? That's awesome. And then every review, like, I have no idea who this two-headed symbiote's supposed to be. And I'm like, well, you know, I guess some of us didn't all read the Lethal Protector books, and that's okay. But you name-dropped two other symbiotes that existed not just alongside Hybrid, but literally inside of Hybrid. But then, like, the Marvel Legend reveals that happened the weekend that Venom: The Last Dance came out. And it's not like they don't do figures, right? There's currently on the shelves a Let There Be Carnage figure. That is a big, beautiful, beefy boy. And there's a Let There Be Carnage Venom figure. Like, that specifically represents things that he does in that movie with his play features. So it's not like Marvel Legends did the one figure when the first movie came out and they've never done another figure for specifically Venom films. So me, ever the optimist, riding high off of The Last Dance, I'm expecting the reveals to be maybe the horse, the Venomized horse that happens in The Last Dance that, like, is all the trailers focus on. Or maybe, you know, one of the freaking gross Venom symbiote hunters. Or any of the other symbiotes that were shown, right? No, they revealed Brave New World Captain America figures. Falcon, the new Falcon, a new suit for Captain America, Sam, and the Red Hulk. Which, let's just have this moment, that Red Hulk looks like Mark Ruffalo. And we know it's supposed to be Harrison Ford, but you guys just used the head sculpt from Mark Ruffalo.
Yeah, and I will say in the preview, the little bit that we've gotten, I didn't think it looked very Mark Ruffalo in the preview, so I
No,
don't think
yeah.
it was
So
something that like, oh, this is what he looks like in the movie. They definitely just used the same the same toy sculpt.
yeah, it's like I'm just like, really? That's disappointing. So yeah, so but those were the ones that were revealed the weekend that Venom came out. That movie doesn't come out till February of next year. So it just like I'm like, okay, so we're not getting anything from Venom: The Last Dance in terms of Marvel Legends. And you know what? I'm fine with that, but it was just like that as I was thinking about how toys affect some of the math in Hollywood, right? I mean, that's the big issue between Batman 89 and Batman Returns is the fact that you sold so many freaking toys off that first movie. We expect this next movie to be hyper toyetic. And Tim Burton like just kind of chuckled to himself as he made the rubber ducky mobile for the Penguin. And it is legitimately one of the most terrifying things ever. No kid would want to own that. I don't know, but yeah. So that's pretty much been my week, and then like some Mario Party. But we can talk about that. What have you been up to, Sejohn? How did you spend your last week away from the Santa Report studio?
We've been doing still some spooky stuff, you know, for Hollow watching this week. We did Don't Look Under the Bed, the old 1999, I think, Halloween decomp,
Decomp?
the
Yeah.
Disney Channel original movie, all about like imaginary friends and like boogeyman lore and stuff like that. Fucking wild movie. There's like all this stuff about how behind the scenes they had to like tone down a ton of the makeup work on like the boogeymen and stuff like that because the basically higher ups kept coming in and seeing what they were doing and were like, we're not putting this on TV to show children. You need to you need to tone this shit the fuck down.
That's
So
funny.
like that
Yeah.
movie is still pretty fucking buck wild though. There's also just a lot of stuff in it about like you know the character. The part of the plot is that the main character is starting to see an imaginary friend that nobody else can see, and so there's just a lot of stuff of like talking to herself in public, people being really weirded out by that, or her like seeing or stuff happening around her and like people blaming her because they clearly can't see the other person, like that kind of shit. And that stuff, like you want to talk about psychological horror for Sejohn, like that's where that movie gets real scary for me.
I don't blame you, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's a reason why Snuffleupagus has been real our entire lives, and it's
Right.
because of exactly what you're talking about right there.
Right. Yeah, and so just that was I forget how much that movie actually gets under my skin. You know, we watch it every few years because it is legitimately one of my favorite ones of the old school Disney Channel original movies. Like it's up there with like Brink for me of like the ones that I just loved. Like we there were some of them that we saw that are completely forgettable to me, but there are some that I just really still hold like in like high regard in my memory, and it's one of those for sure. But we watch it every few years, or I watch it every few years anyway. And I forget how much it gets to me. It's kind of also the same story, funny enough. And we watched the Eureka's Castle Halloween
Halloween
episode.
special, yeah.
Nightmare on Magellan Street is the subtitle for it, but the first title is It Came from Beneath the Bed, I think. And there's just this whole concept of like a monster is walking around the castle, and various characters are seeing the monster, and nobody else is believing them until slowly everybody has seen the monster, and then suddenly they all believe, and then it turns out it's not really a monster; they're really a good person. They're just scary looking, which is a wild moral. But then, so like also kind of the same story of like various characters telling every like large groups of people like, no, there is something in the castle, and everybody's just being like, stop being silly, go back to bed. And it's just like, no, we should listen to them.
But it all works out by picnic time, right? Did they have
Well, no,
picnic time at the end?
it's nighttime, so
Oh,
it's
no
it all
picnic
it all
time?
works out by breakfast.
Okay.
Um,
Do they do a breakfast
but
time
yeah.
version of picnic time? I'm so sorry.
You know, one of the big things about that show that I learned this time around, I don't know how I never knew this. Do you know who
R.L.
the
Stine.
writer was? Yeah, not just for that episode,
for
but
the
for
entire
the entire
series.
series.
Yeah.
Yeah, good shit, man.
One
I
of
was
the
like, man,
reasons why I
this is a
got
wild
into the
fact.
Goosebump books was like, oh, it's the Eureka's Castle guy? I'll give it a look.
Yeah, but that was fun. But the bigger thing is that I was hanging out with some friends this weekend playing some weirder, spookier video games. We haven't done much as far as like spooky video games, and specifically, I got into this like weird little niche genre this week with some friends that I like. I don't know what the actual name for it is, but it's in the survival horror genre, right? But it's this style of game. So the big one that's in this to start with is Lethal Company. That's the big one that took off this past summer, and people are going back to it now with it being the spooky season and stuff. But it's this concept of survival horror where the idea is the game loop is that you are somehow going to a place, right? It is a there's a hub world of some kind, and then you are leaving that hub world to go to a place, and then at that place you are responsible for looting as much as you can and getting the hell out before you get attacked by monsters or before a timer goes off or before some other thing, right? And then eventually you come back to the hub world, you trade in all the stuff that you've got your money to buy more stuff just so that you can go out and do it better, but do it again. And you just keep going, right? And there are some people that have been playing games of Lethal Company for months now because like I said, it came out over the summer and was like a huge success. And like they're just like they're so deep into that game now that like it's legitimately important to them that like their character doesn't die and stuff, which is wild because anybody that's ever seen any Lethal Company, all you ever do in that game is just die. But there's always some kind of really cool lore reasons why this is happening. There's always some really cool stuff about like what could actually be going on and what the end game may be if there is an end game. Some of them don't always have an end game, but like we got into some really deep rabbit holes with this, and the only way I've been able to describe them all week to anybody as far as like a genre name is I just keep calling them loot and scoots because you go in, you loot everything, and then you get the fuck out. So it's a loot and scoot, and like it's the subgenre of survival horror that I'm really into this week.
I really like Loot and Scoot. I'm not going to lie to you. That really works for me. I have seen these all over Twitch and I have been interested, but I don't have people to play them with, right? Because they're all.
Yeah, I think they're definitely like they're possible to play on your own, right? So the big one that I've actually been playing this week is Pilgrim.
Okay.
I had some friends that were into that one because it's extra creepy, essentially. But a couple of other ones that people have been playing, if you're looking for these online, are like Murky Divers is one, and I had the list here in front of me a moment ago.
Um, yeah.
Content warning.
Yeah.
Content warning was a funny one. It actually came out on April Fools from a company that is really big on putting out like April Fools like games, like legitimate games that are just silly. So they put them out on April 1, right? And that one ended up actually being great. Content warning has got like a really fun hook to it.
Content
And
warning
that's the
being
big
the
thing is
one
that
where you go to a place for like a la the Loot and Scoot of like whatever the company one is. I feel like an asshole. Factory
Lethal
Satisfaction
Company.
Lethal Company, sorry. You go to one of these spooky places and the idea is to create like YouTube content for a popular YouTube channel.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
content warning,
Yeah.
and you get goals when you come back to the hub world. There's a way to unlock goals to get viewership. So like the more viewership you get, the better things you can buy that then lead to better viewership. With that, right? Like that's the game loop, and that one is all about viewers. It's really really silly.
Did they
And there's some really fun like cool side mechanics in that. Like you can get like a cattle prod. You can get a you can get a hug mechanic in order to heal and things like that. There's some really silly stuff in that one. But on the creepier side is Pilgrim, which is this one where you're a group of dudes that are being put into a wagon, and you're in this walled off town. And they're saying like we need you to venture to the city to let us know if it still stands, essentially. Like I'm really paraphrasing here, but there's this whole mechanic where like you're given a pigeon that you have to try and quote unquote keep alive. I've never actually seen it take any damage or anything. I don't know.
Okay.
I've seen people release it early, but no. But essentially, if you get to the end of the run, you'll get into behind the walls of a city, and then you release the pigeon to let everybody know there is a city here. Like, come, it's safe. But the whole way you're going, you're stopping in places overnight in order to loot, get some stuff. You're going to a merchant every now and then to sell that stuff and get more stuff to survive. You're being chased in some way by this monster you got to keep an eye on. So there's like this whole like weird, cool lore mechanic to that one that I've really liked. We have not yet gotten to the end. We've fucked it up every time, so I don't know if there actually is a city. Like I'm assuming with the atmosphere of the game there will not be. We will get there, and that there will be that it'll be like, oops, sorry, everybody here's a zombie or some shit like
The
that.
city is a lie.
Yeah,
Welcome to
exactly.
Cakesburg.
The Murky Divers one is the fucking wildest. If you're not into underwater shit, that one's really cool because there's a lot of really good mechanics like with the level design because you can do up and down and left and right because you're underwater. You're not just limited to just like running through hallways. So that one's got some really cool stuff too. That's really fucked up. But yeah, I've been really digging like getting into Pilgrim with some people. I don't know if we'd be able to get a group good enough together to play long enough with those games, you and I, Dev, like to make them really get to where they're supposed to be on the fun level. Like the games, the game you and I should play that I've also been watching this week, because I haven't met anybody to play it with, so I haven't gotten to actually like dive into it yet. Is Chained Together. I've just been watching a bunch of people play Chained Together, and I just keep thinking, Dev, I need to play that one.
I feel like we'd kill each other if we played Chain together. I watched.
I think that you and I would become a well-oiled machine, and I think you can just do that when two
You can do
players, so
that
that we
when
don't
two
have to
player,
bother
yeah.
with a third numbnut.
Oh my goodness. I might. I mean, these are all on Steam, right? Like I am in the process of trying to find. I have coming today a new machine that I'm going to hope can run all my Steam stuff. And I mean, honestly, the bigger reason behind that is I want to explore Switch emulation a little bit deeper as we are getting to the end of the Switch's life cycle. And I've messed with it a little bit. All games that I own, right? And I want to do it. And everything that I have so far, like, it's good up to a point. And the one that I specifically got, I read a very long article on how this one can be like tweaked so it'll work well with it. Because there are a couple of things from the Switch that are not available anymore. Like it's specifically games that you cannot purchase anymore that I want to dive a little bit into. With better, like people are modding them and people are making them work better. We talk a little bit about Super Mario Party Jamboree. The game is beautiful, right? Like you've been playing it, right? Right? Someone got it for you for your birthday.
So I've been doing some one player stuff. I've purposely not gotten deep into it yet because I want to play with you guys. So like we gotta make some plans after.
And I fully intend to do it tonight. In fact, here's a nice PSA for everybody. I was hanging with Claude and Reagan yesterday, and something happened where we were like 4 turns into a game, and then we had to stop. And we shut down the system and all of that. We did not put it to sleep. We shut it down. We closed the game. And then, like, 5 hours later, it's like, do you want to see if we can get another game in? You have 5 save slots on Super Mario Party Jamboree that could hold games in progress. And that is incredible to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
That blew me away. I had no idea. None of the marketing or reviews that I've seen have touched upon that. The fact that you can have a game in progress and then, we all got to go. Now, I will tell you, it is the most strenuous process to make sure that you can reload a game. Everything has to be just right. And by that, we had used like, you know, the host, what the heck is it? Profile.
Right, I imagine that's the case specifically for online games, but I'm sure that if you were just doing like a local
we were playing
game,
it
like,
local,
you know, if you
and
and the family,
local was even it had to make sure that like the same profiles were signed in. The name of the third one, because we had renamed it, has to be exactly the same, which makes sense, but like, you know, we kind of like, we had gone full uppercase the first time and we went lowercase the second time and got it like all players are not present. Do you want to restart this game from the beginning or address the issue? So we kept doing that. All of the players need to be in the exact same spot, which I feel like that one for online stuff could be difficult. Because, you know, it just, however you sign in is how you're assigned the player. So, like...
okay. They need to be in the same
so
player
like, yeah,
slot.
so, like, if you were player 2 and we stopped halfway through a game, you'd need to be player 2 again. It has to be just so, and it makes sense.
I'm starting to see why they probably didn't push this particular feature. It's this specific. But like, it's cool that it's there, but if this had been a thing that they had run their marketing on and it had been this messy,
I don't think the game would be as successful as it is. But even then, like, I was really impressed that, like, we even tested, all right, we have everything the same. let's all pick different characters and see if that is messing it up as well, because Reagan and Claude had switched up their characters that they were playing as. And no, it will start you with the players that the player was playing while the game was going on. So
Right.
your character choice does not matter because it saves who the character was, but your players need to be the exact same name, the exact same profile, the exact same order in order for you to do it. And I mean, like, I bring that up because if we are playing today after recording Sejohn, which I totally think we should, nothing is going on in the house. In fact, some members of the house are going to a Halloween tea party. So we will have, like, some availability and space to play and be comfortable playing, which I'm very excited about. That is all going to be happening. I want to do the 30-turn game in the mall. I want you to know that.
I'm down, man.
And they say it will take about 210 minutes.
Yeah, but you know what? I've been finding, and maybe this is just because I've been playing on my own, but I have been finding those estimates to be grossly overestimated. Like, I played one the other day that was supposed to be, it was going to be a 10-turn game because I was trying it for the first time, and it was like, oh, this is going to be 90 minutes. I was done in 45. Yeah. So, like, I'm not saying it will be a guaranteed half, but I from other games I have played already, I can guarantee that is an overestimate, especially now with 2 human players playing, because we can make sure shit is moving.
We'll have 3 human players. Dale's going to get in on it too.
Oh, cool. I didn't know if Dale was going to the tea party. I didn't want to assume.
No. Dale is specifically, I can't go to the tea party because we're playing Mario Party with Sejohn today as his birthday party. Spoilers, this is going to be a surprise birthday party for you. But yeah, like, it's one of those situations where, like, 3 human players, maybe even 4 if we can find a 4th, because we have a couple of feelers out for people. I think that we could go very quickly. 210 minutes, that seems insane. That's almost 4 hours for Mario Party.
Yeah, but we are talking about a 30-turn game, and, like, I will be the first to admit that I have also had those days with Mario Party. Back when we were in college and we would do some of these games sometimes, like, we would turn on the big ones. We had a rotating game where we had, like, a 50-turn game, and there was, like, 8 dudes around that, like, you know, if you were in the room and wanted to play for a few turns, you could, and then somebody would turn off. And, like, that game went on just all day, because between people pausing and wanting to do their own thing, and there's sometimes not being, or nobody paying attention, or, like, the game itself, much slower. You mentioned last week that this one feels so quick, like, in, like, the in-between. You weren't lying, dude. Like, there is some good shit that goes on to keep your ass in gear.
To keep you moving, and I'm a huge fan of Super Mario Party Jamboree. And we're going to do that, and we'll have a real big, like, review talk about that. But I wanted to make sure you're on that. And I wanted to tell people, because a lot of people are on the fence, right? I also, blanket apology to the no less than 4 people who approached me to be like, you guys talked about the Crow. When the fuck did you do a Crow episode? Everybody wants to hear our Crow episodes that we talked about last week. They're coming. It's the very special episode releasing this week, and then a time capsule within, like, the next couple of weeks. I'm not 100% sure when we're going to be dropping that time capsule. They are coming. I'm sorry that I confused everybody, but they have not been released yet. You haven't missed our Crow content. Apologies for that. And then the other one is everybody.
So speaking about Crow content, sorry, no, you finish your thought, and then we should talk about something else.
I would love to. The other thing is that all the people who have been like, you really made me want to get into Super Mario Party Jamboree. You made it sound so much fun, but, like, I don't know if I have the time for it. There is a way to play, like, 3 turns, and it saves at the start of a turn. That is a thing to know, because we had 2 of us had played before the we have to stop. Oh my God. And it went back to the start of the 4th round turn cycle that we were on. So those two plays did not count at all. It is a possibility. I know that people are older now. Nintendo knows that people are older now, have kids, that life happens. And it would be lovely if you could just put the game to sleep and then come back later. But if you do have to shut it off for whatever reason, or you want to play something else, it does save your game. It is not the easiest process to get back into a game, but you can figure it out. You can manage it. Just make sure that everything is worded properly. And like we had to trial and error for like about 15 minutes, but we eventually got it started. And I feel like it's something to know about, but also know that like Nintendo is gonna Nintendo, so it's a little bit more complicated than it could have, should have been.
Wow.
Now you mentioned the Crow and content about the Crow.
What's up, I can't believe we didn't really talk much about some of the stuff that's been revealed as far as like Switch releases that are coming in terms of like the indie game stuff and things. Just we talked a lot about some of the stuff last week with the ways that Nintendo's been doing their own thing, like releasing this deluge of games at the end of the Switch's life. Because that's why we're pretty convinced that that's what's going on, right? Is we're seeing that we're getting towards the end of the Switch's life, and they're just making sure that everything they've been working on it gets its due, comes out.
I mean, one step beyond
for
that.
spooky stuff.
Oh, sorry.
One
step beyond this deluge of games and content for the Nintendo Switch, all of them are being developed by like second-party studios. So like in addition, like because Grezzo did Echoes of Wisdom, and I'm not sure who did like Mario and Luigi Brothership. The company behind that one has been announced like in this past week because some information leaked about that game. Like in addition to having a solid release slate of first-party games developed by like partner studios with Nintendo has to be working on their big Switch 2 like companion release. Be that Mario Kart 9, be that a new Super Mario Brothers 3D game. Be it
new Pilot Wings.
Yeah. But they like that's the other thing to take away from this deluge of games is that they are rewarding us a new game every single month, right? And we know what that game is going to be through January 2025 when they're doing a Retro Studios remake of Return to Donkey Kong Country for the Nintendo Switch. And then I feel like they're going to take that February off to let everybody save up to buy the Switch 2 in March. But continue, Sejohn, I apologize. What do you got spooky on the Switch?
One of the big ones that is coming to the Switch soon that I got to get my hands on. In fact, it might even be out already. I got to check the release date on it. Is Crow Country. Have you looked into this game at all, Dev?
No, I have not.
Oh man, Crow Country is. I think it's actually going to be something that's going to be really up your alley now, because it is a very reminiscent of early Resident Evil and Silent Hill games. And like I know that you like didn't really love what you experienced with the Silent Hill stuff, but you have been experiencing some stuff with Resident Evil that you've really liked. So I'd be really curious to hear how you feel about this. This is a recently made game, but it's made in the style of like an early like or late 90s, early 2000s like survival horror, right? And it's the story is pretty like it's some pretty standard stuff nowadays for survival horror. An investigator is going to investigate an abandoned amusement park because the owner has been missing for 2 years, and there's a lot of creepy stuff that goes on in the park that you find out about, like are there ghosts, are these things alive, what is going on, like there's a bunch of that sort of stuff. But it's one of those ones that like I had seen bits and pieces of people playing it from PC releases earlier, and like I from what I understand, like early release stuff and things like that now. And when I had turned around and saw that it was getting a straight up Switch release, I was just like, whoa, that is a whole other level of Switch indie game that I was not ready for. Is like it's almost getting back to the days of the early Wii Shop, where there was just so much stuff that anybody could just put on there that we ended up with like a ton of really golden trash. And like Crow Country is like one of those games where you're just like, if it wasn't on the Switch, all I'd ever say is, man, this would be a really wild experience on the Switch. Now that it is, I'm like, I can't believe that we're in this time where these are the kinds of games that we're getting on a Nintendo like system, and like in a system I can pick up and take with me places. Like it's not exactly a Game Boy, but like it's no slouch in like the travel mode.
I am still so thankful that you made me play the Alone in the Dark Game Boy release for Game Boy Color. Thank you for that, eternally. Have not touched this year's Alone in the Dark. I will also sadly admit that. So yeah, Crow Country.
Nobody else has either, from what I understand.
That's a really good point. It released on October 16th for the Switch, but I know that we have a lot of PlayStation gamers who listen. Currently, it is $15.99 on sale through the 7th of November. Over on the PS4, PS5. And I understand the whole, like, on the Switch, this is a really interesting thing for Nintendo to release, but that price seems right for me. There's also a demo available on Steam, which, just full disclosure to everybody, I will be trying the demo first, because if I hate how the game feels, then I'm probably not going to put money behind it. I don't want it to be tank controls. It does not look like it's tank controls based on what I'm watching, but I mean, it looks straight up like, what if we took Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VII was a survival horror game?
Yeah. The animation is very Final Fantasy VII for sure. Yeah.
And as a person who loves Illbleed, and I'm still sad that we don't have like a better way to play Illbleed, Crow Country seems like it will scratch my Illbleed itch.
Yeah, just we kept mentioning the Crow, and it was one of those ones that I've come across for the last week, and it was hard to not just like reference it here. But yeah, so just weird video game stuff this week. I'm gonna do my I want to start doing an Inscription run for Halloween's, since I had such a good time with it last year. So I'm also gonna start that this week. So that's like looking forward to that.
I think I'm gonna try to get through all the DS Castlevanias that released in the Dominus collection. Now that I don't really have anything pressing right now. And then I want to get through all of that before Brothership comes out, and I give Brothership just all of my time.
Yeah, Brothership is going to be the next big one for me too, I think.
So I'm very excited for that. And then like I do want to do some other survival horror stuff, but the one that like caught my eye and then legitimately gave me like PTSD was Still Wakes the Deep. Are you familiar with this at all?
Yes, man.
Like I watched someone play just a little bit of it. And, like, having worked on ships and everything, terrifying. Just absolutely terrified me, like, to see the stuff happening the way that it happened. Because, like, yeah, if you've ever been a guest on a cruise ship, you see the guest areas. For some reason, the only person on our AV staff that they would let go down into engineering rooms was me. And it was just... like, it just felt like I was there watching somebody play this game. Was totally into, we dug a hole too deep and released an eldritch horror, which seems to be the whole, like, inciting action of Still Wakes the Deep. But I'm like, but this is too close to, like, places I have been in the real world where, God forbid, something bad would ever happen. Like, yeah,
the company that made that one is the company that made Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, which if you've never played, is this wild experiential story that is not scary but has a little bit of a sci-fi creep to it, but I wouldn't call it horror. It is legitimately like beautiful and heartbreaking. Really what it is. You're going through this town after an incident has occurred, but Everybody's Gone to the Rapture is a phenomenal experience. But the other game that they did is they did the Amnesia follow-up. They did Machine for Pigs, and like that game was so fucking scary for me. Like I don't know how some people feel about the Amnesia games nowadays, but like at the time, like Amnesia and then a Machine for Pigs, the follow-up was just really like got me, like really scary shit. So it sounds like this one's going to be more towards that, right, in terms of the scary stuff, but in terms of like the atmospheric storytelling and like the idea that you feel like watching that is like reminding you of real life shit, that doesn't surprise me at all, because they are so good at creating those kinds of atmospheres.
Like, I wanted to keep watching, but, like, I was shaking. And I'm like, nothing even scary has happened. At this point, right, like, the drill just got stuck. And it caused a bunch of fires in engine rooms that, like, you're going to go put out. And I'm just like, oh, my God. Like, I mean, there is a real thing, right? If you've ever gone on a cruise ship, you do your muster drill. And the thing that the captain says at every muster drill is fire is the most dangerous event that can occur on a vessel at sea. And it is the truth. Even though you are surrounded by water, you are surrounded by water. So it's not like, let's get away from the fire and we're safe. Like, eventually you hit the water and you didn't know where to go. Like, it's like, oh, it was like seeing fire on a ship. And then, like, I didn't even realize that Still Wakes the Deep is like a period piece set in 1975. So I'm like, oh, so even worse that, like,
yeah.
Yeah. So like that is
Yeah,
what.
I mean, it gets compared to a whole bunch of cool shit. Like people could talk about it looking a little Dead Spacey. People talk about it looking a little shit. What's the sci-fi one with Natalie Portman there? That's all about like them going into the fog and finding like a team. Oscar Isaacs is the guy on the old team that they're like finding the remains of and stuff, and
Oh.
like the body shit happens. Annihilation.
Yeah. Yeah. That.
Yeah. Yeah, fuck me. Like, there's just some stuff that happens in that that's really yeah. But anyway, so like, it's a from what I understand, a hell of an experience. But also from what I know about my experience with that studio and their stuff, way too fucking scary for me. I will
Yeah.
want to check it out in some way, but I don't know if it'll be one that I'll ever like get through.
Like I was like so on board for like the stuff that was happening until they went below decks, and I'm like, oh, I've been in this room. I've been in this exact style room that like I do not feel comfortable right now.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
So like good for them, right? Like they nailed it. The Chinese Room is the production company. They're a British company, and they get it.
Did they do
understand.
the Bunker too? That was the other Amnesia game that came out recently. I think it was an Amnesia the Bunker, or at least it was related. But that was another big one last year that was also really scary. The Bunker is like this really cool like World War One trench story where you're like the last guy alive in a trench and something has killed everybody else and you have to kind of like escape the trench, but also at the same time, like if you do, you're just throwing yourself to the Nazis. So like there's this really big back and forth, really interesting stuff there.
So no, it doesn't seem to be one that they worked on.
Oh,
Amnesia,
I
Machine
recommend
for
that one too
Pigs,
then.
Dear Esther, Corsacovia, which was actually a mod for another game, Little Orpheus, like interesting stuff. And I don't know, like I want to make sure I highlight it because it looked like a very incredible story.
The Bunker, right? Yeah,
But it
yeah,
got too, and the Bunker. I don't know. I'll see who did the Bunker. That sounds...
Amnesia the Bunker. Yeah, it was an Amnesia game. Came out June of last year. Yeah, it's that was just another good one that's in this exact same vein where like there is something around you, there is reason to be like afraid, the stakes are high, but they're not constant. And I think for me that actually is just even scarier and harder to be in, you know, versus like a Resident Evil where it's like around every corner there's something trying to kill you. In these games, no, but you don't know which corners are going to be the one where they are.
I want to also take time to recommend Castlevania Requiem. Is currently $2.99 on the PlayStation Store, and that gets you Symphony of the Night, which I still think is probably the best Metroidvania Castlevania experience, but also Rondo of Blood. And very recently, I have come to terms with the fact that Rondo of Blood might be the first objectively good Castlevania game. As somebody who loves Castlevania 3, thinks that it did amazing things for the game series in terms of lore and everything, and I like the first game too, but they're stiff. You're not as fluid in the motion. They're like, as long as you're continuing, you can keep going, but you start at the beginning of the world, not the floor you were on, right? Rondo of Blood is the first classic Vania or Retrovania that has a save system. That's not passwords or anything like that. Legitimately, Super Mario World style, you get to a point, it saves the game. You can go away, come back, and start from where you were. And the motion that Richter Belmont has, he is so fluid, as opposed to just how stiff Simon Belmont and Trevor Belmont, and even Simon Belmont in something like Castlevania 4 is, right? It's the 1993. All of those are the games that came out prior to it. And for $2.99, if you're on PlayStation, it is worth your time if you're looking for something to play leading up to Halloween. Because the last thing that I need to talk about is the fact that Vampire Survivors, the game inspired by Castlevania, is getting a full-on Castlevania DLC released on Halloween.
Uh-huh.
That has...
Yeah, I saw the news. I was really... I thought that was a really Devon moment. I was like, oh, yeah, we're going to have to adjust this, I think.
Yeah. I think it's so funny to me that, like, you and Will are like, yeah, Castlevania, Devon Decker. Those are two things that just go together. When Will once was
Well,
watching,
it's specifically Vampire Survivors and Castlevania.
Yeah,
Those
yeah.
two things.
Those
also,
two things.
right? Yeah.
I don't know. I just think about Will when he's like, so I was gonna watch your competition, but when I saw the game was Castlevania, I legitimately was like, well, Devon has this, and I went and I did something else. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not even offended that you, William, who video games is not something that comes up a lot in our relationship with Will, right? Will's our cool friend in terms of like, he plays team sports and does and like works at a bar. I mean, not now. Now he's selling the alcohol to the bars, but that seems like the natural evolution, right? Bulbasaur slings the drinks, Ivysaur sells the drinks, and then Venusaur makes the drinks. But like, makes the drinks in a factory for distribution, for the Ivysaurs to sell and the Bulbasaurs to serve. This metaphor got away from me. I'm gonna.
I don't know. I think you can get a really good Bulbasaur gin, probably.
I think that'd be fantastic. I mean, it'd be earthy. Whatever Bulbasaur drinks you're drinking, they're gonna be earthy. But yeah, so like for him to like be like, I don't know much about you in video games, Devon, but Castlevania, Bing, and yeah, Vampire Survivors, and they have revealed that every canon Belmont is is part of the 20 playable characters, including my favorite Belmont. I know I said it was Trevor, but the truth is it's Sonia Belmont, the erased from history Belmont, because they didn't like the implication that she had Trevor with Alucard that was present in Castlevania Legends, even though how fucking crazy and cool is that the guy who is destined to kill Dracula has part of Dracula's blood in him, is like 1/4 vampire.
I mean, I thought that was just kind of understood to be the case anyway.
Yeah,
I didn't realize we were ignoring that part of the history.
No, like they've like Iga or someone at Konami, I don't want to just put it on Iga, has said that we have considered the events of Castlevania Legends non-canon. Despite the fact that like when it came out, it was like Castlevania Legends is the first time that a Belmont ever killed Dracula. It was Sonia Belmont. And also, we're going to put into it the fact that Sonia Belmont and Alucard were lovers, and Trevor Belmont, the prior first Belmont to kill Dracula, is the product of their coming together.
I don't know. It just feels like why would that be a thing that they wouldn't want to explore? That's such a it's an easy road, but an interesting road still, I think, to go down, right? That whole idea of the Van Helsing, the Belmont, the vampire hunter falling in love with the vampire. It seems like,
well, falling in love with the
for a series that is not afraid. For a series that is not afraid to go into like the schlockiness of some of the vampire lore and concepts out there, what a wild line in the sand for them to draw.
For a game system, for a game series that gave us the end credits of Symphony of the Night, which I'm not spoiling here, go buy Requiem, go beat Symphony of the Night, and then just let your jaw hit the ground as you watch what is the end credits for Symphony of the Night. Or I guess you could go Google them, right? YouTube them. They're available on YouTube. But what they did with that is crazy. The fact that they took from Son of Dracula, Dracula's vampire child's name is Alucard, which is literally just Dracula backwards. I love it. Like, geez. I always like to imagine that he just saw himself in a mirror, or at least half of himself in a mirror, and that's when he realized. But yeah, like the idea of Blade being half vampire is cool, right? Like one of these things that like the only one who can kill this kind is someone that is partially of their genetic makeup, right? It's such it has existed for so long in vampire mythologies across the world. So it's so weird that Konami was like, yeah, no, that one's not canon. In fact, in a weird way, I feel like it's one of the first examples of what we're dealing with now, where we made the protagonist a female and there was a backlash because of it. which is
Yeah, I
just
mean,
so
like
crazy.
it seems so easy to just point that out and say this is a thing, and look at here's evidence of this thing, and then you'd be surprised how many people are like, that's not evidence of this, that's not evidence at all, and you're just like, okay, whatever.
Well, and
Like,
then like
I don't know how to explain that reality is real to you, but here we are.
right, and then like by doing that, it adds that whole extra layer to Dracula's Curse, Castlevania 3, in the fact that Alucard is someone you could team up with, and like that's your father, that's Trevor's father. So, like, yeah, I'm going to team up with my son to take down my dad, who has come back to descend upon the unwilling population of Wallachia. Like, what the hell? Like, that's cool. That's cool storytelling.
Yeah, I mean the ways in which it really marries the I mean literally marries the families, right? Like
Yeah.
it just it gives so much more oomph to why the Belmonts, like why would they would be the ones that would be tied to them in this way, in this fate. It gives some credence to that I guess it, you know, isn't needed, but like is appreciated. Like I appreciate that kind of background.
Not only, I mean, like, again, it's not needed, but, like, if that's what they want to establish as the lore, I mean,
Well, it's not, right? That's the
right.
problem.
That's the thing. Like, well, at the time they
Yeah.
did, and it was later on down the line when they wanted to make other games where they're like, we'll just say this one isn't canon. But like the fact that Ode to Castlevania, the new Vampire Survivors DLC, has Sonya there, like
Yeah.
if she were not canon, then why would you allow her to be used in this DLC? And that's available right now too. If you got Nintendo Switch Online, you could go play Castlevania Legends right now. And it is an exceptional experience and really does show how everything went into like the lore of Castlevania. Why the sub
So
weapons are a knife and axe and all of that.
yeah.
Because like that's part
This
of the
is like
game
the most
too.
obvious one. Do you think that this is the end of DLC for Vampire Survivors? Like, is this the big get, and they don't need to push this anymore? Because like this feels like this is what they always were working towards, right? Like when this was the little game that could first started, like it was these assets that they were then like, oh shit, we got to dial this back if we want to go public with this, right? Like if we want to go real big with this, we got to make our own thing. So like they moved away from the Castlevania of it all. To be able to come back to Castlevania feels like such just a good bookend. Do you think this is the last time we see like a big push of DLC for until we get like Vampire Survivors 2?
So the only thing is, like I'm still in the Discord for it, and Ponkel, the people behind the game, they are talking about with Alucard in the game. That means that there's a damn fear now in Vampire Survivors, which means we're one step closer to there actually being a vampire in this game called Vampire Survivors. Like that's been the whole joke, is that this game has now been out for 2 years, right? In a 1.0 version. And
Right,
you
right.
still never fight an actual vampire in the game.
The dude in the dude that you fight that pops up out of the coffin's not a vampire?
I don't know. Infernius, I believe is his name. He's the
Yeah.
director of the game's character. I don't know if he's technically a vampire, but like they always say that there's still no
They seem to
vampires
say,
in the game.
yeah, they seem to. Yeah, I was gonna say the company seems to think that he's not.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Okay, so then follow up question: how long until we get that sweet TMNT crossover?
Oh my goodness, how incredible would that be? I
I
don't know.
mean, they're
That
doing everything with the turtles nowadays. How could this not be a thing that we see in 2025?
I would be. I mean, it would have to be announced in 2024. And you have to announce it in December. Take advantage of the fact that it is the 40th anniversary of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I think that we would have an option like that. That's a more likely thing to happen than not. And I don't know, because you're not wrong with this. Like, it'd be weird if you don't fight Dracula in the Ode to Castlevania DLC. So, like, and they might just be keeping that under a hat. And now that there's officially a vampire in the game, this is the end of Vampire Survivors. See you in the sequel. I could totally believe that. But also, like, they've done all this DLC. They did Contra DLC before they did Castlevania DLC, talking about Konami stuff. I would love to see the Turtles. I don't know, like, who do you have as characters? I mean, obviously the boys, you do a Casey. I mean, I think you tie it to Shredder's Revenge, right? Which, finally got to give the remixed music a chance this past week, and it's just
Okay.
all like kind of TMNT 2, the arcade game songs that have been remixed for it, which is fine.
Nice.
But I was like, oh, I was hoping for, something a little more unique. But I guess they're just remixes. It's not like a secondary soundtrack. But I was also hoping for remixes specifically of the Shredder's Revenge stuff, not like going back earlier into the game series. Neither here nor there. I don't know. I think that it would be foolish if they didn't do a TMNT crossover. I recently found some stuff out about I walked away from the IDW TMNT stuff. I have been very upfront about that. And I found out some things that happened in the let's conservatively say 80 issues that I did not read that really made me scratch my head. So while I am still excited about Shattered Fate supposedly getting more content, and dear God, the Steam version, have you tried the Steam demo of TMNT Shattered Fate, Sejohn?
No, I've not.
It plays so much better than the Switch version, and it is just a demo.
Yeah.
Like, it is
Nice.
disappointing. It ends at Karai. I've gotten to the Karai fight 5 times. Because it's still, like, fun. And you get to pull forward any of your upgrades. So, like,
Nice.
I have all my upgrades that don't require Karai shields or Shredder claws. So, like, when it comes out on Steam, I'm going to feel pretty powerful. But they've said that a new character is coming. And the fact that it is set during, like, after Jenica has been introduced as the 5th turtle, with the punk frogs there, because they don't come till 125, like, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Jenica. I would kind of be surprised if it were Casey Jones because of his, like, NPC status in the game. You know? Like, who replaces him as an NPC.
Right.
But, like, the
Or
IDW
does he just talk
stuff,
to himself, which happens sometimes in
that
these
happens
things.
in some games, right? I don't know. Here's what I will say. About TMNT and Vampire Survivors, and then we can start to wind this episode down. I believe we see TMNT in Vampire Survivors before WayForward releases the Double Dragons into River City Girls 2. Because they keep threatening to do that, and it has not yet happened. And even as someone who didn't like River City Girls 2, does not want to play as the Double Dragons, there are other things that are supposed to come with their release that I am kind of interested in. Palette swaps for characters, a better dialogue tree, because I complained about how shoddy the dialogue tree was the first time through. So, I don't want to play as the Game Grumps as Double Dragon. I'm not interested in it. I'm very disappointed that they voiced the characters. And not just because I'm not the biggest Game Grumps fan, but also, like, the way they changed Billy and Jimmy Lee in the River City Girls world. Like, it worked if they're going to be NPCs, but as actual characters, I'm like, what? Billy's a pacifist now. So now he's going to be okay fighting people? Like, did you guys just not think about what's going to happen? Is it going to be like multiverse versions of them who didn't become like pacifists? I don't know how it's going to work. And I am stupidly interested in what's going to happen. But I still think we got a TMNT Vampire Survivors DLC, even if it's just the boys as DLC to play in the game before we get the Double Dragon into River City Girls 2.
I mean, like, I was legitimately just trying to think, like, what would be the next logical thing that I would want as like a video game fan, now that they've done the Castlevania thing, because I really do feel like Castlevania is like kind of the end game for Vampire Survivors. But seeing the success that they have had with these DLCs, I'd be ridiculous to not think they have to consider what if we kept going, right? So, like, even if ideologically this had always kind of been the end game, they'd be dumb to not have the conversation of, if we were to keep going though, what will we do, right? And I started wondering, what would they do? And that was like such an easy one for me to get to, as I was like, well, obviously at some point they need to do the Turtles, right? Like, why would you not? You've got so many characters. I mean, you could legitimately bring Shredder in as a character to play in Vampire Survivors, and I think that people would be fine with that. Like, I don't think there'd be somebody out there being like, no, he's not supposed to be the one you play as.
It wouldn't be you with Michael Myers. Though you still bring up a really good point there.
Honestly, if
Like,
you wanted to do if you wanted to do the universe like monster shit or something, or bring in like Jason Voorhees, or like, it makes more sense to me. The idea that we are talking about, this is not the world. This is a world that these people are being brought into, because like that's how they justified the Among Us stuff and things like that, right? It was
yeah,
like they did like portaling to other worlds or whatever.
yes,
Like,
exactly.
yeah, so like if they wanted to do that, that makes so much more sense to me than trying to tell a narrative single player experience with Michael Myers where he is supposed to be the hero of the story, where it's just like, this is a wild fucking pull, right?
I mean, the more I thought about it, the more it's like, you have Laurie Strode as a character. Make her the character you play as the first time through the game.
Right.
Like, that's what you
Yeah,
do.
if it
Like,
was some weird alternate mode of the game, then fine. Like, I
Yeah,
think
if you
I'd be
unlock
much
Michael
more on board
Myers,
with its existence.
if you unlock Michael Myers after you beat the game as Laurie, or he is a DLC character, like, that also feels like how games used to do it. Like,
Yep.
you played through the game, now you get to play as the bad guy. Like,
Right,
that,
right,
like, that's a
exactly,
thing that
yeah.
exists. So, like, it's just like, I don't know. And I would be very curious to ask if it was always Michael Myers from the beginning, because I've played as Laurie Strode now, and it just feels like such a realized version of the game. Like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, no, that's who I want to play as. Is because she's got her knitting needles, and like she has a double jump, which really fits in with the world. And I don't know. I spent enough time on Retro Realms for it to be a game that reading, oh yeah, right now we only have 2 games planned, but we thought, let's put 4 other cabinets in there just in case this is successful. Like, oh, okay. Like, now I'm excited, and it might not happen. Thank you for that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It'd be cool if they do something. I want them to do some fucking buck wild. I want them to get like the Critters license or some shit like that, or Leprechaun, you know?
Yeah.
Have that be the one that they do.
I mean, I want to do Child's Play. I think it'd be interesting to be Chucky.
Child's Play is just so visceral nowadays, right? Like,
Yeah,
it used to be funny and fun, but what they have done in the last little like 10 years with that series, it's, I mean, like, they tried to go in a very like Saw direction for a while,
Right.
with like the Cult of Chucky and stuff like that, and I just not into that. Like, from a fun horror comedy perspective, that this is not what they were anymore, right?
Yeah.
But that's other opinions that I'm having right now. Doing some other hollow watching. We've been doing a bunch of hollow watching, and I've got some opinions about scary movies right now.
You know what I did as hollow watching? McHale's Navy. And I'm so excited for 2026 and the movies we're going to cover in 2026 and who they're going to feature.
I always get that one and Sergeant Bilko mixed up.
I know you do.
The Steve Martin Sergeant Bilko. Oh, and
Periscope.
and down Periscope. Fuck me.
Periscope, yeah. That's the only reason why I saw McHale's Navy, is because you're like, is that the one with, and I'm like, no, that's down Periscope. Is it this one? No, that's Sergeant Bilko. And you're like, well, you need to see McHale's Navy, Devon. And I saw it at the beginning of the pandemic. It was a movie I sat down and watched, and recently it was on sale for less than rental on Amazon Prime, and I'm like, nice. I'm gonna buy McHale's Navy. I mean, like, speaking of the Evil Dead with the Retro Realms game, Bruce Campbell is fantastic in that movie as one of the Navy guys. French Stewart, and it does that thing that like Maverick did that I really liked in terms of making the old TV show into a movie in the 90s.
Yeah.
But you and I both know what I'm talking about. We'll save that as a special treat for other people if we ever cover Maverick. And McHale's Navy is a 97 film, but if you're familiar with the 1997 film McHale's Navy, when I say I'm excited for what we're covering in 2026, you probably know what that means. But we'll see when we get there. Anything else that you want to talk about, Sejohn, before we send this one off?
Everybody have a good Halloween.
Yes, have a happy Halloween. We're going to have a very special episode coming out on The Crow, so you'll have that. And I am, hoping to be able to do another Studio of Terror, like quick half hour of me reading spooky stories. So those will all be out by Halloween. But with that, if you want to keep the conversation going, we have a Discord. It's the Say Report Discord. Invitations are available on our social media sites on Facebook and X, formerly Twitter. Or you can send an email to thesayreport@gmail.com and we can send you an invitation there. Or you can just send us emails and we'll respond to them. And as always, if it is specifically for my eyes or Sejohn's eyes, put our name in the subject line, and our intern, who I can assure you does not exist, will distribute it appropriately. With that, thank you so much for listening. Have a happy Halloween, and William, bring us home.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Sejohn Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.